Oh, yes. Caught offside from just outside of New York City and from an apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Andrew Gunling and J.J. Devaney. What's up, brother?
What's up is that the listeners are in control tonight, Andrew.
Nice. Those are the best shows because we cannot be trusted.
No, we are exhausted, we're tired, and they do all the work for us in the rundown. Let's be frank.
That's right. This is a mailbag special.
Oh, big one here. Andrew, please share your Bahamas Jay-Z story. You can't just mention it and not give details. Now, we had an off-air argument where I said this story has never been told on the podcast.
It definitely has.
It has not been
In
told.
almost 9 years of doing this,
No,
I'm sure it has. It has.
you've mentioned it. You haven't gone into detail. You've gone into detail on ESPN Radio, but you've never spilled the beans on the podcast. You haven't.
Well, maybe I should keep people waiting. Keep giving them a reason to tune in each week. Maybe that'll be the week.
No, just tell us
No.
what happened. It's an
All right.
amazing story.
All right. It was in the I'll try to be as brief as I can with it.
Okay.
It was in the Dominican Republic, not the Bahamas. We were there on vacation. We took a boat out one day to sort of like we had like a guide basically who was driving it, and he knew like cool places to go, so he took us to some island off the coast of the Dominican Republic.
Deserted.
So deserted, deserted, but like like an island where you can do this, like where boats can go to this place. There were some things on there,
It
as I'll
wasn't
get to.
Cuba.
No, no, it was just an island, tiny island with nothing on it except like some beach chairs and like a volleyball court and
Sounds
that.
amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. So we just kind of like dropped anchor a little bit offshore of this island, like, hung out on the boat. And then a much cooler, larger yacht pulled up right near us. And like you could see some people going to shore on it off like a little like motorized raft kind of thing. I don't know what you call it, but like that came off the back of the yacht and some
Mm.
people went on up to shore, and we're like, that no. And we thought it was Jay-Z and Beyoncé, but like we didn't have couldn't quite tell. But the more we looked, we were like, that yacht, I think it might be. And so we then followed them onto the shore of this deserted island, and it was them. It was actually them with some of their friends and a bodyguard. And they, like, I don't know how to even say this other than to just say it. They hung out with us. Like, we hung out on this island, and like it was literally only us. Like I said, it's a deserted island
So it was
with
you and
Jay-Z
Amanda.
and the other family that we were vacationing with. They have two kids also around like my age. My sister was there too. um so yeah, it was like the five of us plus our parents were
Oh,
all there, and then Jay-Z, Beyonce, a couple of their friends, and a bodyguard, and we hung out. We played volleyball with them. It was surreal to the point that I sometimes can't even believe that it actually happened, but I swear to you it did.
and
And
what's Jay-Z like?
the man couldn't have been cooler. Just
Yeah,
like super friendly to everyone. He was the one when we were playing volleyball. He was the one who kind of like divvied up teams. Like he was like the go-getter in it. He was
right.
like, let's get this going. Um,
Did you embarrass yourself or were you good?
no, I was fine.
Whose team were you on?
Not his.
So it was you and Beyonce.
No, she was on his team.
That you shouldn't have done that. That's not fair. Got to mix them up.
She was quiet. I don't remember her really saying much. She was pretty quiet. This was
Pretty.
also a long time ago.
She's
This was probably in 2007 or 8, somewhere around there.
right. Okay. Oh man,
Um,
she must have looked amazing. Sorry to go there, but
I mean, facts are
beautiful,
facts.
beautiful woman.
Yeah, beyond stunning, incredible. But yeah, it was one of the most memorable experiences of my entire life. I'll never forget it. It's Can't even believe it happened, but I'm telling you, I'm not that guy who just like suddenly I'm gonna just lie about this thing. I'm telling you, it's real, and it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
It would be so cool. It would be so cool if it had happened during the period of the pod, and we could have been part of like his media empire.
Oh yeah, you think so?
the weird little strange soccer podcast he picked up
Yeah,
on the beach.
the one thing I'm lacking from this empire is a soccer podcast.
I'm
Sure.
always thinking of me, Andrew. I'm actually so jealous. That is just such a cool story,
Do
man.
you have anything? Look, I wouldn't expect. I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but I don't know if anybody can surpass that. You can equal it. Do you have
No,
anything even close?
um, I'll go with the one that comes to mind. So when I came out here first, I was just kind of looking for work with any media company I could. So it was 2014, and there was a Canelo Alvarez fight at Madison Square Garden, and a friend of mine, Elaine, she got me working as a production assistant. Basically, whatever they needed me to do, I would do it there on the night, a member of the HBO staff. And so uh, things were pretty much set up, and they told me they wanted me ringside for the fight. So I'm like, oh, that's awesome, absolutely awesome. So before the fight, Max Kellerman was working for HBO at the time and also ESPN. And so I'd never met him before. And he sat down beside me and we started chatting about, he asked me what I did. And we had started the soccer podcast. And so it was weird for him to say, who do you work for? And I said, oh, I work for ESPN. And he's like, you're doing this? I'm like, yeah. Oh, okay. And I'm wearing like this oversized HBO t-shirt, something that they give to staff, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and he's just looking at me. All right. And then we got into this argument about LeBron James versus the best soccer player in the world. At the time, it was probably Luis Suarez coming off an amazing season. I said, athletically and skill wise, there's no comparison between the two and what they have to do. So I'm having this back and forth with Max Kellerman, whatever. Fight's about to start. He goes in, does his whole thing. I met Jim Lampley as well. And one of the people says, Jake Gyllenhaal is coming to this fight. He's rehearsing, or he's gathering knowledge for this film he's doing, which ended up being Southpaw, I believe. Can you sit in his seat till he gets here, so no one else sits in it? And I'm like, can I? So I just sit in the seat, and in he just comes in, and I just get out of the way. And then I'm like, what do we do? And basically the person in charge of me just said, you just got to kneel down beside him.
Ay, ay, ay.
So I'm to the right of Gyllenhaal, holding my equipment, not what you think, holding the piece of equipment I had to go into the ring with afterwards. Because I was the guy that would hold up the screen for Max Kellerman so he can see where he is on the camera, right? So when the camera's pointed, he sees where he is so he can stand and talk to the fighters. And so he's just beside me, just watching the fight. And we had a sort of a short conversation between rounds, but like nothing, just pleasantries. And then I got into the ring. After the fight, I'm in the ring at Madison Square Garden holding up this thing for this monitor for Max Kellerman.
You're one of the round girls.
No, the round girls were around me.
Oh.
Yeah. They were in the ring as well afterwards. So that's kind of cool. No? It's not as good as your story. All right.
So you follow up Jay-Z, Beyoncé, Deserted Island with Max Kellerman and Jim Lampley. What are we even doing here?
Jake Gyllenhaal. All right. Okay. In the audience.
Yourself.
All right. Cristiano Ronaldo was a number of seats away at the fight, as was Michael J. Fox. I didn't speak to either of them. Doing my best. No one's going to stop your story. It's so intimate.
I know. It was. Don't even know what to say.
All right. Cute on the Reddit. My question, and this is pretty much for you, Andrew, I'd say. What is going on with Irish soccer? While never a powerhouse, the Irish used to qualify for international tournaments and even make some deep runs. Once. Furthermore, there seem to be fewer Irish professional players at high levels. Where other small countries are qualifying for major tournaments, producing high caliber talent, and generally punching above their weight, the Irish seem to be in a deep trench. Is this just a false perception? Is this a bad wave that we should expect to go away? Is it an FAI issue? Would love your guys' take.
I'll handle this. I do have a lot of thoughts, actually. Would you like to hear them?
Do you want really?
Yeah.
You
I
have
can't have an opinion.
all right, go ahead. Actually, you go ahead.
All right. Well, here, I'll start with this. This website, powerrank.com, they take match results from the last 5 years, but they weigh them according to importance. And then they rank every country. So for example, a World Cup match is worth 4 times as much as a friendly. Ireland
Gotcha.
are 45th in the world, just behind Paraguay, just ahead of Saudi Arabia. They're 48th in FIFA's world rankings, whatever you think of those. Again, just ahead of Saudi Arabia, just behind Ivory Coast. So that's where they're at right now in terms of like their rankings. Now, so I took this question basically and I kind of just like threw it into Google just to see like, okay, like what are this is a thing that I actually, as an outside observer to Irish football, this is a thing I would agree with. That like there was a time when I felt like Ireland was a pretty prominent soccer nation and I knew all the players playing for them. Like, like they were really, I held them in a high regard as a kid growing up. And I mean, I'm not trying to be demeaning or anything, but they're just not viewed that way, at least
No.
not by me. That's just something has happened. So I found this, JJ, Football 365, which is a great website. They basically posed this question back in 2021. So 2 years ago, roughly a year and a half ago. And they were kind of looking for submissions for Irish people to kind of weigh in with their thoughts on this. And there was one that I wanted to mention to you that I
Okay.
thought was really interesting. One submission that's basically suggesting that this has not happened by accident. And so they say that you tell me here what's fact and what's fiction. They say that basically in the early 90s, this is extreme paraphrasing because it was long, but in the early 90s, the Gaelic Athletic Association, which oversees Gaelic football, made a massive investment on expanding the growth and popularity of Gaelic football within Dublin specifically.
Correct.
And traditionally, this guy goes on to say many of Ireland's better players in soccer came from Dublin. But the
Correct.
city's athletic scene completely changed with this investment and has been consumed more and more by Gaelic football. He goes on to say football at the grassroots in Ireland and in particular in Dublin is in tatters. Dublin GAA, which is Dublin Gaelic Athletic Association, is an unstoppable beast, and the effects of overinvestment have not even been addressed, and there appears to be no will or desire to either.
Okay.
Uh, is that
Yeah.
a thing where just like soccer's relevance and importance has maybe taken a back seat to Gaelic football?
Imagine that's only one factor of a multifaceted problem.
Okay.
So certainly Dublin Gaelic football has been, pumping money in, and they've been very successful. But just in terms of the Irish international team, I broke it down 3 ways. Because the popularity of the GAA, I think where the GAA have done well is across the country, is that they've been able to get funding from the government to build GAA pitches. Like some of the facilities for GAA clubs compared to the same facilities in the same town, it's night and day, Andrew. It's what have the FAI been doing? So I think that the FAI has focused too much on the international team through that good, we'll say, 25-year patch from 86 to maybe like 2005, whatever. Basically, what's happened is this. The international team was able to, we were able to have Irish players playing in the top teams in the Premier League. Like up and down the league, there was
Sure.
Irish players playing week in, week out. That doesn't happen anymore. It's an international league, and it's so much harder to get our players in there. The second thing is we had the granny rule, which was basically we benefited from years of immigration going to England and top level players like your John Aldridges, who was a striker at Liverpool, or your Ray Houghtons at Aston Villa, and, Tony Cascarino, players like that, John Sheridan. They all would play for Ireland. It was an attractive thing to do. And because they didn't really have a chance of playing for England and they had a connection to Ireland that they knew about, and they would play for Ireland. That doesn't happen now. Not to the same extent. And if it does happen, it's from lower down the leagues that we get the players. And, this has happened in Scotland as well, but it's much more acute in Ireland. It's harder to get our younger players in. And for 25 years, all the development of Irish players happened where? It happened in England. And so now with Brexit and it harder to get in young player, it almost much more difficult. I was going to say impossible, not true, but much more difficult to get our players over into English academies because it's flooded with foreign players. And
this started well before Brexit, though.
Oh, it did. Yeah, the decline started well before that. I mean, year on year, there was less and less players playing at the top level. Now we pick mostly from a handful of players: Seamus Coleman, Doherty, from Gavin Bazunu from the Premier League, and then like the rest are from the Championship. It's sometimes League One, and that's just the decline that's happened over a few years. But we can't get our players over there. So now, for the first time, we've had to think: how do we hothouse, grow, and develop our own players in Ireland? And then we look at our league. Our league's a mess. So our academy structure for some Premier League clubs in Ireland, semi-professional, professional, is only just started. We've only just started player development. So we're behind everyone. Like a lot of the countries you see now doing really well, they're so many years ahead of us. We're playing catch up and it's hard. And we have an organization, the FAI, which has been almost bankrupt. America, if you look at the United States, Philadelphia Union, Dallas, look at them producing players and then exporting them. The Red Bulls as well. NYCFC are going to be doing it very soon and have done it already.
Sure.
Scally, Reina.
Harrison.
You make fun of MLS all you want, but they've got their academy system right in the last 15 years. Ireland's way behind, and we're a much more established soccer nation, if you want to put it in those terms. But we've neglected our league, Andrew, so much. There's such a focus on the Premier League. It's like having this massive elephant in your house that you have to feed, and that takes all your attention and all your time. And meanwhile, you're trying to look after your family. It's really, really hard. And having England on our doorstep is now, once it was a benefit, now it's a problem. So we have to do it ourselves, DIY, Andrew. And that's going to take time. But Evan Ferguson has scored for Brighton in the Premier League. He's a young player, and we're hoping that there's more coming through. Yeah.
Interesting.
It is.
Because, I just remember from my youth, like, Robbie Keane, Roy Keane, Damien Duff, John O'Shea. Like, I don't know. I just remember, I could rattle off like the Irish 11, like when I was, in like early mid 2000s, even like.
And those are all top clubs that they went to. Like O'Shea, Manchester United, Keane, Nottingham Forest, then United. But Damien Duff went to Blackburn Rovers, but he had his picket teams. Ended up at Chelsea.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen now. There is top talent, and it's coming from all around the world now. It's so much more competitive than it was for Irish, Scottish, and indeed Welsh players.
And you've had some unlucky breaks with Grealish, with Declan Rice.
Well, Rice in particular. That's why it rankles so much. Like, you thought there's another guy. Okay, immigration coming up trumps for us again, and he takes 3 caps. It's soul destroying. It really is. But there we are. Thanks for giving me this time to vent.
Yeah, that was actually like genuinely interesting to hear that.
As an Everton supporter, this is hard to say, but would relegation allow them to reset the club philosophy and playing style, a la Burnley under Vincent Kompany this year? Ooh, I'm just going to say yes, Kompany. It's been fantastic. Like Burnley are most likely going up and will probably go up as champions. It's worked out really well appointing Vincent Kompany. He's got the style of play going really well. They had that excellent win over Bournemouth in the Cup at the weekend. 100%. You cannot compare Burnley and Everton. You cannot do that. Everton are founder members of the Football League. Just this enormous. I'm not saying Burnley don't have a history. They do. But Everton are just like, I mean, the size of the club, the view the supporters have. Relegation would be a singular humiliation for them. It would be just dreadful. They are a big club. They may not have the recent trophies. They may not have the prestige of the new moneyed, financially dope sides in England, but they're a big club, a historic club in their own right. Their supporters wouldn't see it as a reset or a chance to reset. They would see it as an utter catastrophe. The other thing is, right before Christmas, I was reading an article It was in November about Bramley-Moore Dock. They're moving to a new stadium, right? And it was a Guardian kind of investigation into how that's been funded. And usually, and this is just the crux of it, usually before a spade is put in the ground, the funding has been secured for the stadium. And the Guardian contend that that is not the case with Everton.
Oh boy.
Oh boy is right. So they have no room for error here. Relegation would be disastrous if that is the financial situation they're in. So no. There's that option is not there. And that's why we're hearing rumors tonight on Twitter and a few other places that the Dyche man cometh. They're really looking at Sean Dyche. Now, I would have my own, as much as I don't think Lampard can turn this round, I would have my own reservations about Sean Dyche because Burnley, the aforementioned Burnley, were heading straight down under Dyche. He only left with enough gap in time to make it look like, not to make it look like, but to not be fully responsible for that relegation.
To give the illusion that had he stayed, maybe things would have been different.
Exactly.
But there was no sign of that.
Certainly not. Yeah. So these are scary times. And especially if Southampton put a run together. It's so tight down there. Say Southampton put a run together, say Wolves start to pull themselves up as they seem to be under Lopetegui. I mean, they were really good against Liverpool in the League Cup, in the Cup, excuse me. And then Everton are not as good. I don't think they're as good as either Southampton or Wolves.
Well, we'll find out a little bit this weekend when they play Southampton. I think that one's at Goodison. So, I mean, it could be really dire.
It's really scary. And the money in the stadium and all that just means that I totally get what you're saying, but there is no reset for.
They cannot go down. They cannot go down. It would be a disaster. And people can parade around all the examples that for every Burnley that maybe it's helpful. And by the way, we'll see. But like for every one of those that it's helpful to, there's 5 Leeds, Portsmouths, Sunderlands, teams that just like enter an abyss.
Yeah.
And especially with a stadium that has to be funded. No, they cannot go down. I really think that it would be a true disaster. I mean, look, maybe the stature of the club is like when Newcastle went down, you kind of knew it felt like they'd be right back.
Did it though? I mean, they did it, but there was no guarantees.
You're right. No, you're right. There is no guarantee. But maybe Everton's size and stature, maybe they would at least, they'd certainly have to sell some players, but maybe they'd be able to keep a few key guys. Maybe, other high level championship players would flock to them. But it's not a risk that they can take. They can't.
This would really be testing the theory that there are some clubs who will never go away because they're just too big and too ingrained in the soccer culture in England. That would really test that theory. They can't go down. That simple.
Well, this was super fun. Just because this one's done, like I said, we're going to continue to obviously take your questions and comments and everything at CO Soccer Pod on Twitter, caughtoffsidepod@gmail.com. What's the Instagram, JJ?
Caught Offside Pod.
There you go. Simple enough. This was awesome. You got anything else?
No, that's it, my friend.
Well, then the only thing left to say is to you, I say,
check you later, fun boy.
See you, man.
Take care.